I gotta let Will get turned around here. I've given a lot of speeches since I got the job March 24th. This is the first time I haven't had to lower the microphone. Usually whoever I follow, it's got to come down. And Mike Thomas always points that out. He always points it out. Well, I know they're going to have a lot of keynote speakers. It's going to, hey Mark, how you doing? There's going to be a lot of guys talking over the next 2 years. I think this will turn out to be a great event. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing here. In the business world, most of you are judged on your successes. The things that are similar, mainly similar, are performance-driven jobs that we all have. Mine's very performance-driven. So you have to make proper choices. You have to be smart about what you do. Well, last spring, there were 60-something head coaching jobs open. Over 60, it was really 64 to be exact. If you count the one I left, I opened one up when I left. I'm the only guy that took a job where there was one quality returning player. The fan base was fractured and very upset, and they had just joined the best conference in the history of college basketball. So I'm wondering what I'm doing here today. But I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that choice. I want to say before I get going a little bit, it's an honor to be the coach at UC. It's truly a dream for me, and it's a job that I never thought was going to open for a long time until maybe I was retired. The turn of events have been quite unbelievable, to say the very least. But that being said, I'm glad to be here. And I keep reminding myself of that every day until Mike Thomas finally gets my big guys eligible. I'm just kidding. It's not Mike. It's not Mike's fault. I'm just kidding. Just putting a little heat on him. He makes extra phone calls when I do that. But from the locker room to the boardroom, there's a lot of stuff I can tell you that I believe is similar. My experience with Coach Pitino, as well as Coach Huggins in different ways, prepared me for who I became as a head coach and who I'm still becoming. Part of what I like to talk about is the evolution of who you are as a person in the business world, as a coach, as a manager, and what you're trying to become. My motivation is very simple for my job. I want to bring the national championship back to the University of Cincinnati, but I have to identify goals. I think we all have to identify goals. My short-term goal was obviously just get a basketball team. I thought I was a golf coach at my first meeting. We had 5 guys, and I've since run 3 of them off on scholarship. So I guess that first meeting didn't go very well, Mike. You were there, by the way. You should have told me I messed that up. But as far as short-term goals, we've been able to get our team together and identifying those short-term goals and making sure that our business was sound for the immediate future. And at the same time, trying to prepare for our future. For me, it's a long-term process. When people talk about things that may happen on our campus 6, 7 years from now, or people may talk about an arena that may be built, that affects me. The way I look at University of Cincinnati, the way I look at our basketball program. A lot of coaches think that's crazy. You need to worry about what's going to happen this year and hope you have your job next year. But I try to go from a confidence standpoint and build long-term. I may be in a little bit different predicament than everybody else. I am in the job that I'd like to have until I retire someday. My toughest decision needs to be where my daughter's going to go to school. In Cincinnati, I'm sure I'll take a lot of heat for that one as well if she doesn't go to certain schools. But as far as the business part of it, you know, how does it come in? Where does it go? I'd like to say a couple things. I think it starts at the top. Biggest thing I learned from Rick Pitino is accountability, but accountability of self. His work ethic was second to none. When I worked for him, I can assure you it was hard to outwork him on a daily basis. It was hard to outprepare him. Every day I woke up, and I can tell you that every day when I was driving to work, I was thinking, what is he going to try to get me with today? And I knew he was going to be there. I knew he was going to be on time, and I knew he was always coming, trying to make sure he was going to ask me a question that I wasn't prepared for. It was inevitable. Whether it was he would sit there at 6:30 in the morning and ask me about our top 10 sophomore recruits. And I'm thinking, how could he possibly think I'm going to know the answer to that? Early on in the process of working for him, and I came to realize he was only trying to make me better on a daily basis, make me accountable. Where working for Coach Huggins, he relied on me, he trusted me. It was a great feeling to have, but at the same time, the accountability wasn't there. Part of the reason I went with Coach Pitino was to get that experience. I had to prove myself all over again. And he taught me that it all starts at the top, with yourself, and self-evaluation is a big, big thing he taught me. I can tell you, from self-accountability to self-evaluation, one of my experiences, we played Sanford University, they're in the OVC now, to the OVC guys. They weren't in when you guys were in the OVC, no shots intended, but Sanford's a new member to the OVC. My record against Sanford was 0-3 the first 3 times I played them. And as a coach, you tend to, you say, well, we didn't make shots, or you can say that your game plan was great, your kids didn't play hard. That's an easy out. And it was an out that was never accepted by the guys I worked for as an assistant coach. And through self-evaluation and taking responsibility for the loss, I realized I couldn't just go out and press Sanford to death. We didn't have the athletes to do it. I was watching the wrong films. My preparation was all wrong. It wasn't my kids' fault. They were trying. Sanford was just using our aggression against us. And our strategy was totally wrong. And we were just not athletic enough to go outman Sanford and get them to play too fast. They like to play real slow. For those of you basketball fans, Sanford plays just like Princeton. I know everybody talks about Princeton with the slow offense. So the way we were doing it was just the wrong way to do it. We did not have the personnel to do to Sanford when we played Princeton at the University of Louisville. We were able to beat them by pressuring them and playing up tempo. So I had to self-evaluate. This is a true story. I spent basically a couple hours a day for the whole summer in the 05-06 summer, the summer of 05, preparing to beat Sanford, because it drove me nuts that we had not beat them. They were the only team that I had a losing record against in the OVC. In fact, at that point, we only lost to a couple of teams in the OVC. And our strategy was all wrong, and I needed to take accountability for that. We played them twice my last season at Murray State. We totally changed our strategy. We zoned press, played zone defense, changed our offense that we ran against their matchup zone. We beat them by 20 and we beat them by 17. And I would tell you that my kids played just as hard as they did in the other 3 games, which is simply my strategy. And I think as a leader, the biggest thing that I learned from Rick Pitino is when you need to be accountable and you need to admit that you were wrong. And I know that that's a hard thing for a lot of us to do, because you can, especially in coaching, we all cling to the term where the guys didn't. We can go to the media and say, well, they didn't listen, they didn't follow the game plan, we didn't play hard enough. Well, that's easy to say, but you need to go back, watch the film, and self-evaluate. I think self-evaluation is the key to taking the next steps in business. It's the key to taking the next steps and overcoming obstacles that you haven't been able to overcome. Running your head against a wall and continuing to do it is not going to do any of us any good. So self-evaluation is probably my best story with that. As far as my adjustments, was my failures against Sanford taught me a lot as a coach, as a young head coach. The difference between good to great is something I'd like to touch on a little bit. I've been spoiled. I was with Cincinnati during great times. We averaged 27 wins a year when I was an assistant coach here. So I understood the difference between being good and being great, because we played against good teams all the time. But we always found a way to win the league. We won 5 championship rings here when I was an assistant coach, averaged 27 wins a year. When I went to Louisville, I saw the difference firsthand, because they were losing. Coach Pitino came in. We took a team that was 12-19 and went 19-12, and the mindset of the people was the difference. They were happy. Once the kids saw we were going to have a winning season, it's amazing. They were just happy that they could leave Freedom Hall and sign autographs and not be embarrassed. And they were okay with that. And what I needed to do through recruiting was go out and get kids that wasn't going to be good enough for. And the first thing I did when I brought my first recruiting class in, because we got the job, I went in there in April, so the guys I recruited didn't really play until the next year, was to make sure I pulled those guys aside before they got to campus and explained to them, now look, these guys are good guys, but you have to understand their history. Right now, they're just happy that Rick Pitino's their coach. They think that's neat enough, him being who he is in the state of Kentucky. A lot of those kids were from Kentucky. They think it's great that they had a winning season. I think it's terrible. They think it's great. Where I come from, you win your conference. I was spoiled. I won 5 rings here as an assistant coach. When I was at Woodward High School, we won 5 city championships. I was 10 for 10 until I got to Louisville in my coaching career. So changing the mindset through the personnel and making sure that the new people that came in understood you guys are here to eventually go to a Final Four, which those kids did in their junior year. They went to a Final Four, and they unfortunately overtook Cincinnati for a conference championship. But changing the mindset, changing the personnel was something that had to happen. It had to happen, and unfortunately some guys had to go. We had to make some waves, whether it was changing of personnel, changing of managers. I think the only people that have survived since I got to Cincinnati are the trainer and my secretary. Bob, don't be nervous, Bob. I can't fire you. But you have to make some personnel changes if you want to change. Will and I were just talking about when you come in and you're asked to change a culture, you're asked to change an environment. You have to make some changes. The other thing is you have to be able to do what's not easy. And I can tell you, in my experience, the easy thing to do was take a job with Coach Huggins in spring of 1995 or 6 when he offered me the chance to join his staff. The hardest thing I ever did was leave and go to Louisville. Why? The question's real simple. I was at home. I'm a Bearcat. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody that's had a chance to meet me since I've been back, my enthusiasm for being back at home. It was hard to go to Louisville. Coach Huggins, as I mentioned earlier, never questioned anything I did. By that point in time, whoever I wanted to recruit, okay. Whatever I said we needed to do in game preparation, sounds good to me, because we were winning and it worked. But I chose the road less traveled because I wanted to become a head coach. And I didn't want to just become a head coach. I wanted to become a big-time head coach. I wanted to be prepared when I got there. Nobody's better than Rick Pitino at doing that. So I had to swallow the pill and leave Cincinnati and go work for a guy that was going to make me get up at 5 a.m. every day, question everything I told him, question every recruit, tell me that every recruit wasn't good enough every time they saw him, question every time I told him to run a play, every time I made a suggestion. Everything I did for 2 years he questioned. Absolutely everything. Now in the media he promoted me and did an unbelievable job and impacted my life in numerous ways, but it was not the easy move, I can assure you. Sometimes you got to make the hard move. And then people say, well, you got fortunate you got the job at Murray State. Well, when I took the job at Murray State, they fired a man that won 104 games in 5 years. Now you can do the math, that's almost 21 wins a year in 5 years. He went to 2 NCAA tournaments, won 104 games, and his players were graduating at a high rate. And he did not resign, he got fired because they didn't think he was winning enough. So as I sat with Coach Pitino at his house and talked about it, and he was trying to talk me into staying, and the next day he came down, he said, you got to take the job. I said, why? He said, because you're going to go down there and give those people what they want, and when you do that, you'll get any job in the country because you're already a proven recruiter at the highest level. But you're going to, I said, but I got to go down there and win 25, 26 games, go to NCAA tournament, 2 of my first 3 years, or I could be out the door like Tavester Anderson was. And he said, yeah, but you'll be fine because you'll outwork everybody. You'll do what you got to do. You'll make all the sacrifices in the world. Living in Murray, Kentucky won't bother you. I hope nobody from here is from Murray. But I did find a lot of good friends in Murray, but it wasn't something I was looking forward to doing at the time. I was scared to death being a city guy. He said, but no, you need to go down there and you're going to get the job done. And he was right. But I can tell you, when they talk about now, well, how about the pressure of being back at Cincinnati? Pressure is when you're living in a small town and you're out on your own and you either make it or break it as a head coach. And this is a true story. I never told Mike this. Last year we won 14 games in a row and it was late in the season, and my wife is a social worker from Murray Independent School. She comes home one day and she says, I had a funny encounter today. A guy wished us well in the conference tournament, and he said he really hoped it went well because he really likes you. He thinks you're good for the community. I said, well, that was nice of him. She said, you don't get it. He was saying basically that we need to win the conference tournament because we didn't last year, and if you don't, you may be gone. And he was serious. He was serious, and that was what true pressure was all about. But it was an opportunity. The way I look at opportunities and challenges, if you're going to ask people to do things for you and put you in a position to succeed, whether it's Will McIntosh, who's a new dean of the School of Business, who's been charged by Nancy Zimpher to get us in the top 50, if she's given him the resources and he has the energy to do it, he's taken on an unbelievable challenge, but it's also an opportunity that when you succeed, you're recognized in the sense of achievement. The road less traveled is by far the most rewarding road, and which brings me back to my last point about coming back to Cincinnati with one player that I knew I was probably going to end up with one player, at the end of the day, which was Cedric, that was a true scholarship player. I knew our fans were restless. I knew there was a lot of upset in our community about the Coach Huggins leaving and the way it all happened. And I also knew the Big East is the best basketball conference in the history of college basketball. But I will say to you that it will be extremely rewarding when we're at a parade down on this street, on 5th Street, headed for Fountain Square, reliving 1962, holding that trophy up. Now, we got to have a plan to do that, and I see a lot of loyal Bearcats out here, and that may not happen this year. I see some guys out here. That may not happen this year, and you have to have a plan. You have to have a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And you have to be able to, you cannot be afraid to make waves. A great book I read this past summer, If You Don't Make Waves, You'll Drown. And it's all about accountability and making sure your people are being held with their feet held to the fire. Will and I have been talking about it. I apologize to anybody he lets go when he gets back to the business office. If you see me turn and get on people on my bench, it's because my assistant coaches, they're held accountable. They have jobs to do. I believe loyalty is being loyal to the people that get the job done. I don't believe loyalty is in the business world, in the performance-driven world that we are both in, that loyalty is not about just because somebody worked for you. Loyalty should go, it's a two-way street. I always talk about Fifth Avenue. It's the largest one-way street in America. Loyalty is a two-way street. You give somebody a job, they owe it to you to get the job done. And you owe it to the people on your staff or in your business or in your company that are getting the job done on a daily basis. To me, you owe it to the people that are getting the job done to hold the other people accountable that might be holding them back, holding their company back, holding your business back by dragging other people down. I'm a major believer in that, whether it's a personnel change that I need to make or a staff change that I need to make. When I came from Murray State, the first thing I did, I had a young staff. And I told them throughout the year what I expected of them. And I told them throughout the year that if I wasn't getting better help on my bench throughout the season, and we were on a large winning streak, that if we got a big-time job, I was going to go out and hire a veteran coach, which I did. I hired Larry Davis, who's associate head coach for me. He's been a head coach the last 9 years at Furman University. Not that I didn't bring everybody with me. It would have been easy just to give everybody a raise and say, hey, well, you know, that's the loyal thing to do, and give my top guy at Murray State the top job at Cincinnati. Wasn't the smart thing to do. And then when Darren elected to go to Rutgers, I had another job open. I could simply moved up my younger guys. Andre Tate is a video coordinator for me. He was a head coach at Cincinnati State. He's a very successful head coach. I assessed the situation. I think I need more of a veteran recruiter. I can't do it all. I'm the head coach. I'm here today with you. I'm not on the phone. I need guys out there that are proven, that don't need a roadmap. I need people that are going to make me look good. Again, it would have been very easy for me to just move people up. And people say, and I got calls on that from different people saying, you need to be loyal, you need to move those guys up. Well, my answer to them is, who's going to be loyal to me when I get fired, if that's the case? I need to do what I need to do to get the job done. I need to be loyal to everybody that writes a check to UCATS, everybody that's ever put on a Bearcat jersey and bought a ticket to one of our games. I need to do what's in the best interest of Bearcat basketball at all times. And I look at it this way. If I have somebody that's not ready for a certain job, the worst thing I can do is put him in that job. He needs to be trained. He needs to mature, and he needs to get ready to handle that job. But at the end of the day, I answer to the people that hired me, that write my check, and the people that are sitting in those stands, and the former players. So making the popular decision is not always the best move. And definitely making the easy decision for your friends or for people that may just have worked for you for a long time, to me, are the things that bring head coaches in our business, bring head coaches down. And the difference from being good and great, to me, is in the detail and the preparation. I can tell you that the difference, I was around it 5 years here, around great basketball, averaging 27 wins a year. I can tell you a lot of people refer back to talk about big wins. We beat Duke in the finals of the Great Alaskan Shootout. And on the way up on the plane, I was sitting with Jim Ellis, and he saw my notes, one of a noted eye doctor, great guy in town, and he saw all these notes I had, and he said, well, what is all this stuff on Duke? We play Southern Utah first. I said, I already got a job, and he saw the date on my notes went back to July. I said, well, we're going to beat Southern Utah. Well, I'm going to scout. I got them handled, and I got Iowa State under control, but we're only going to get one chance to beat Duke. They're not going to play us. They don't want to schedule us now. They may now, but in a few years they won't. But we get a chance to beat Duke. And I'm going to be prepared. We're going to have it prepared. Coach Huggins, we had been sprinkling Duke preparation into all our preseason practice on how to guard their spread offense, their dribble drives, the different things that Duke does. Our guys were preparing for Duke for the first day of practice. They didn't even know it. We didn't tell them, but they had been prepared. So, because you don't have practices when you play 3 games in a row. You can't just try to prepare the morning before you play Duke. That particular Duke team went 31-2 and lost in the national. They didn't lose again to the Connecticut in the national championship game. I think they had 9 first-round draft picks on that team. We beat them because of preparation. We beat them because of details and execution. We were able to get a large enough lead against them and hang on and get the job done because our guys were more prepared. And that's the bottom line. And people can say, they argue that to the death with me. When you do what you do what I do, you know why you succeed. You absolutely know why you succeed. I can give some Bearcat fans a bad example of that. My first year at Louisville, we went 19-12. We were a very average ball club. The Cincinnati team that I left went 31-4. One of your losses in that season was at Louisville in the second last game of the regular season. I prepared for that game for a year. From the time we lost the first game here by 30, I prepared for that game for a year. It was preparation in the details. You can watch the film, see the layups we got at the end of the game when we knew what they were going to do on the defensive end of the floor. So I really believe that the difference is preparation. I tell my teams now, the average Big East game is the margin of victory is less than 10 points. So when you're talking about who's going to win and who's going to lose in the Big East, we're talking about details. We're talking about preparation. We're talking about execution, which is probably the worst thing my team does right now because we're all on the same page, so just to strike a lot of confidence in the Bearcat faithful out there. But we're going to get there. But details are the key. Preparation is a key and strategy is a key because what happens in our world, by January, everybody plays hard. Playing hard and out-hustling them and all those things, they don't get the job done because everybody's doing that come January, come conference play. And the details are going to be what separates us this year. Whether we're able to execute as a young, inexperienced group come winning time, especially when we're in tough competition. We have some coming up here in December. So last week's 3 games were great for us because a game is worth about 20 practices. Because guys listen in practice, you're standing right there. In a game, they tend to block out a little bit what you're saying, excuse me. I was getting blocked out a little bit by my point guards. My point guards are struggling with me right now. They're fighting with the wrong guy. I'm a little bit more hard-headed than them, trying to get them to see things my way. But we got to get to the point where we can execute at winning time. We got to be prepared to win close games. I don't talk to the guys at all about winning these past 3 games. I talk to the guys about winning Big East basketball games. They haven't played in the Big East. Cedric's really the only guy that's played in the Big East, and it's not an easy thing to do. So I think you have to factor yourself to the highest common denominator. Fortunately, we're in the best league in the country, and we can factor ourselves to our own conference. And if we're able to be successful in our conference, and part of Mike Thomas's catapult plan for UC Athletics is to win a Big East championship in every sport in the next 5 years. Well, I may not do that, but we could win a national championship. That's how good you could be in our conference and still win it all and not win the Big East. That's what it's all about. So we prepare to win Big East games. That's what we talk about. That's what we're going to aspire to be. And it's going to get done through hard work and preparation and details and recruiting. I got rules. Will McIntosh can just go to schools and recruit all he wants. He doesn't have to follow the NCAA guidelines. He's telling me about all the recruiting he's up to. I might have to start sending you into some schools. You're allowed out whenever you want. But I want to thank everybody for listening. I know people got to get back to work, and I don't want to go too long. But I know there's some Bearcat people out there who probably got a few questions. I don't have an answer on Hernal Hall and Adam Haritsanuk, unless Mike's phone has rang here recently. Yeah. I have no answer as to their eligibility. We are hoping to figure that out this week. I can tell you in my dealings with the team, we don't talk about it. We're preparing to play the hand we're dealt and find a way to win the way we are now. And if we get one of those guys or both of them, that'd be great. I don't want to set those guys up to think that they got help on the way. They need to be ready to win the way they are right now, although help is on the way for sure with Connor Barwin. Just may not be till after a bowl game. But please feel free if you have any basketball questions. I'm not shy. You're not gonna stump me or make me. You can get on my coaching too. I know Mark's probably got a few things. Well, we're going to have to hang, all my teams, I'm always going to challenge them to, we're going to hang our hat on defense. In sports in general, whether it's our football team or whatever, you're not going to win if you don't play defense. See, defense, you can not be the most talented guy in basketball. You might not be able to dribble the ball great or pass the ball or see through the defense and make perimeter shots. You might not be the greatest inside scorer in the world. But you got two eyes and you're strong and athletic. You should be able to be a good defender if I teach you that. And getting the guys to buy into that. Defense wins championships in every sport, in every team sport. And we're going to always be a great defensive team. And I tell the guys in sports, you know, that on ESPN they do that contender, pretender thing. All teams that don't play defense are pretenders. I had 3 teams at Murray State. 2 of them went to the NCAA tournament. Both of them were excellent defensive teams. I had one team that gave up almost 45% from the field goal percentage defense. We finished second in our league, but we were out in the first round of the conference tournament. We were a pretender because we couldn't stop the other team at winning time. You got to be able to stop the other team at winning time. There's a great line in basketball that I use. So you got to be able to win when you do not make shots. If you rely on making jump shots and you rely on your offense to win games, everybody shoots 50% or lower. So when you have the off night, you can't just lose. You got to be able to win when you have the off night. And that's the key to sustaining success in basketball. And it's been done around here for a long time. That's something that needs to continue.
How do you feel about your guards? You talked about your guards before in terms of how they'll match up with other guard play in the East.
Well, I've told myself coming in I was going to be positive about all questions. I think they're going to get a lot better. I think they're going to get a lot better. In defense of the guys, it's like I've told them, because I was hard on them this weekend. And I text message them at night, I call them, because I'm tough on them. And I want them to know I'm not going to give up on them. These guys are doing this for the first time. And whether it's Deontay Vaughn, who's a freshman, and he's trying to figure out where he's supposed to be. He's never played any defense in his life. Or Jamal Warren, who's never played half-court basketball, just flown up and down his whole life. I would love for that to be the case, but in our game, the other team gets back and they get a little scouting report going, and now you got to make reads, you got to slow down and make the right decision with the basketball. You got to show a little bit of patience. It's just going to take time. I think that's why I said the games were great for us, because what happens in practice, you get a little bit of a false sense of security. And games are the only thing that are going to solve that for those guys. I think we have talent. Right now, I don't know if we have a guard right now that's going to end up in the NBA. I'd need to get one of those. It would make me look a lot smarter. A lot smarter. In our game, it's like Tony Stubblefield's a recruiter. He says, Coach, you're doing the best you can. I got to get you somebody that doesn't need you to tell him that. In guard play, sometimes you shouldn't have to tell a guy to read the defense. They went from man to zone. Guys should see that on his own. Instincts. But at the same time, my guys are so nervous right now. I'm yelling out stuff at them. They're playing for the first time. My guys are really, really proud to be Bearcats, I can tell you that. They're really thankful of the opportunity. We don't have one guy on our team that feels like he's gracing us with his presence. We did. They're no longer with us. We had those guys in the spring and the summer. They're no longer with us. We got great team attitude. But I think our guard play will improve. Deontay Vaughn is a 4-year guy. I think at the end of the day, he's going to have a great career. Unfortunately, I need him to have a great year as a freshman. But playing a lot is going to help him. That's the one thing. Experience will help those guys.
Mick, your post-game shows this weekend, you thank the fans for showing up and supporting the team. And the Bearcats tonight, I'm a little disappointed with the size of the crowd. Do you have any thoughts on whether or not winning back the fans?
Well, playing the early games 3 nights in a row, I think, is tough. Especially we were off school Friday, so a lot of our students went home, turned it into a mini fall break. I think you'll see for real starting on the 21st. Football gets a little bit more over with, and Bengals are going the wrong way. That may help us. Who knows? Hey, some things never change. When I left, the same restaurants are great here. When I left, the Bengals were a losing team. I came back. I must have jinxed them. I missed all the good years.
You said that when you were at Cincinnati, you were playing, preparing for Duke here in fans, and local Cincinnati. Is there a team right now that you're preparing and practicing either right?
I can't answer that question. I'm sure you can figure out the answer to that, though. Well, the whole Big East, to answer that. I studied the whole Big East, even Marquette and Connecticut that we don't play because you may play them in a conference tournament. And I need to get to know those coaches myself. So, and it's been tough. It was a tough summer with so much recruiting to do with the film watching. So sometimes I have to just go home and hide and go to my basement and watch film and just hide from everybody. That's the hardest part about being back home is everybody wants to talk to you, and you got to be accessible in my job, but I'm a big believer in film study, so I have to hide out sometimes. But as far as December, I'm sure you can figure out who that is.
Question about recruiting. When you were assistant coach, you were saying you were recruiting the Luncheon. And I know the big schools and famous coaches were recruiting them too, and you were talking to them.
Yes. I wish I could talk him into coming back. He's talking about DeMar Johnson. Yeah, our recruiting is going to be in phases. It's just like anything else in business. Sometimes you're hot, sometimes you're not. If you're not hot, which it's been a difficult 18 months for Cincinnati basketball. Fortunately, kids don't pay attention. They're playing video games. That's the truth too. And they really don't pay attention. And Coach Huggins did a great job of making the program bigger than the coach. The kids know Cincinnati basketball. They won for so long, and the Big East sells itself. The program sells itself. But at the same time, like right now, certain schools are a little bit hotter on the recruiting trail. You got to be able to tilt that. How do we do that? Style of play. And my assistant coaches, you got to be able to sell the fact that you got playing time for guys. You got to be able to sell yourself as a coach. And the main thing is kids got to see that you're going to be the vehicle for them to get to where they want to go. They got to see it and they got to believe it. So our recruiting starts at a very young age, But elaborating on DeMar Johnson, he was a one-year player. And right now, we don't need one. We need some four-year players. We need to get a base and a core to our program. Then if we're able to add some guys here and there that may be 1-2-year guys, I'm not going to turn them down if they're the right kind of people for our university and our program. But at the same time, we got to get some guys that are going to be around for a while. I can't have a new team every year. It's not good for my blood pressure. Yeah, he just talked about you can't imagine how hard it is to win. You know, we talked a little bit. The big question they kept asking me at Media Day at Madison Square Garden was I intimidated by the other coaches on the podium? And I didn't want to say, well, no, because then it makes me look arrogant. What I wanted to say was I'd like to trade a few of them players and let's see if they're intimidated. You know, but you don't want to say that. You don't want your players to take that the wrong way. You know. But that's what I mean, players win games. You know, I can tell you, because I'm very close with one of his assistants, his current assistants, Kevin Willard, and I are best friends. And I can tell you after they went 6-10 in the Big East last year, it's been a rough off season in Louisville for the assistant coaches. Been a very rough off. They've been charged with getting the head coach better players, making the guys look good. So if you see my assistants, and you've already seen this, are not on the bench at our games, it's because I've told them to get out of my sight. Because they can't help me with this team. We can only win so many games with these guys. I'll coach them. You need to go get me some players. And because at the end of the day, for us to get where we want to go, personnel is the key. Just like for you guys in business. Personnel is the key. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not a rocket scientist. John Wooden's the greatest coach of all time, but he had a guy named Lou Alcindor, and he had another guy named Bill Walton, some different guys now. You got to have players. So It had been a rough off season down in Louisville. So that's really what he shared with me. You can't believe how hard it is.
What's your non-league scheduling strategy looking ahead, specifically with like Miami, Xavier, Dayton, the regional guys, and maybe a Sanford in here that you don't?
Yeah, I know. I've had enough of Sanford. I told Coach Tillett, I got my 2 wins. I'm done. My non-league scheduling strategy is get wins. No, I'm just no, I'm serious. I'm just kidding. It's all relative. It's all relative to how good your team is. Mike and I talked about it after I got the job. Obviously, we were going to be in the infant stages of a new basketball club. We needed 3 home games to start the year. This was a great event we had this past weekend for us. I really believe this. 1 win against High Point or Tennessee Martin or Howard is worth 15 practices. Getting those guys out there and seeing an uncommon opponent. But as we get going, as we're on solid ground, here's my philosophy. We need to either be playing a home game where we're getting one of our home wins, or a non-league game needs to be against a nationally televised opponent, and either a Coaches versus Cancer Classic or Ohio State in Indianapolis, or somebody in Madison Square Garden, or we need to, like we play NC State home and home, it needs to be for TV. We need to either play a home games or made-for-TV game, national exposure games that will enhance our program. And I don't mean this in the wrong way, but it is not my job to promote the other local programs. That's how I feel about it. I said this earlier. I answer to the Bearcat faithful and the people that sign my checks, and I need to do what's best for Bearcat basketball. So it's business. So if we're not playing, you see us not playing Dayton or whoever we're not playing, or it's business. It's all about Bearcat basketball. I'm a loyalist, I can assure you of that. I hope I didn't make any Dayton guys mad. Thank you.